Question old assumptions and look for new insights. Brevity, go for honesty and depth, but please don't go on and on. Sincerity, speak only for yourself about what has personal meaning to you and from your perspective and your point of view.
All right, thank you, Jenny. I think I have somebody out there recording for me as well. And Jenny, if you're able to do it, I am not able to get my side by side with the speaker showing on here. I've forgotten how to use Zoom. So if you could do that, that would be great. So anyway, this is a video that we showed at our last Courageous Conversation, and we received a lot of good comments about it. So we want to share the link in the chat with you so you can watch it at a later time. It's only about 3.5 minutes. In it, John Cena says, patriotism is love for a country, not just pride in it. And so to be a true patriot, it means we love the people in our country. And you might think that any one particular group makes up just a tiny number of people, but the average US citizen has a lot more diversity than you'd probably imagine. And this video does a really good job of illustrating that point. So in a moment, we're going to start with a short 3-question poll. Our program today is on Asian American allyship. And though the tactics we teach can be used to support anyone who is being discriminated or harassed, the reason we decided to put a focus on coming alongside people with Asian ancestry is because recently there's been a disturbing rise in hate crimes, and partially due to COVID blaming. And we also have a past ugly history as well. So this leads me to the first question of the poll I wanted to ask. Get this launched. Is this showing? Could somebody unmute and tell me?
It says quick poll on your PowerPoint.
Okay. Did the poll come up that says question 1?
No.
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I try. Okay, how about now?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, so question 1, were you taught Asian American history when you went to school, K through 12? Yes, no, or don't remember. Just click. This is all anonymous. Nobody is going to know whether you did or didn't with all these questions. So please just be really honest. Okay, and we're almost to 100% of the people voting. Okay, we have everybody's answer. So I'm going to share the results. Looks like 7% of you did get some Asian American history, and the rest of you either didn't get it or don't remember. And I would say not remembering is as similar as not even learning it in the first place, because it's just information that you didn't hold on to, so it wasn't stressed. Okay, I'm going to go to question number 2. Let's see. Okay, that should be on your screen now. Do you know about World War II Japanese internment camps? Yes, I know a great deal. Yes, I've heard about them, but not very much. Or no, I've not been taught anything about this. And we've almost got everybody answering. You all are quick. Great. Oh, we've had some extra people join our group. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share this. So it looks like actually we've got people who know quite a bit about this, more than I expected, I'll say. So less than half, but nearly half know a lot. And then some of you at least have heard a little bit about it. So I'm glad to hear that. And then the next question, the last question, is simply where did you learn about this? Was it when you were younger in a K through 12 class? Was it in a college or university class? And by the way, this one's multiple choice, so you can choose as many as applicable. If you did your own independent research, if you've just kind of come across it in literature. Okay, and it looks like we have got, I'm going to go ahead and share this. So roughly a third of you in an elementary classroom. College brings us up to a little over half. I'm happy to see that a lot of you are doing your own independent research. and then other avenues. So thank you for going through that with me. Okay, so I just wanted to highlight, in case you didn't know, that in Northern California, there's a monument for the Tule Lake Segregation Center, and it is the largest site where Japanese Americans were incarcerated. Chiharu Sai, one of our music faculty who's on with us today, told me about this, that she had driven past it. And I'll let her talk about that in a moment if she'd like. So racism is born of ignorance, and education is crucial. We must include our shared history in our classrooms and our communities so we can learn the value of everyone's contributions. It provides a framework for all of us to better understand cross-cultural histories and experiences. So I brought up the TEACH Act because Illinois became the first state in the nation to require Asian American history to be taught in public schools. And this was only May of 2021. So this is the first and only state that requires Asian American history to be taught in the schools. The effort that went into passing this law was immense. Let's see, it was a grassroots campaign. They sent over 15,000 text messages to Illinois residents to get people going. 800 emails were sent to legislators. 65 personal testimonies were given, and more than 1,000 witness slips in support of this bill were given. Here in our own state in 2017, we had legislation passed to teach tribal history. That was Senate Bill 13. And for a little bit of more background, that if you would like to do some research on your own, we have Chelsea Rose, an archaeologist and graduate of the University of Oregon. She's done extensive work focusing on Oregon's Chinese migrant history and gives an excellent presentation on the Oregon Chinese Diaspora Project. So I believe Jenny's going to put that in the chat. So I spoke with some of RCC's faculty with Asian ancestry to ask if they would like to share some of their stories with us. I have to say I was pleasantly surprised. I was delighted to hear that personally they had not experienced much direct racism themselves. You know, we could all use some good news. This is the world I want to live in, right? That's the world we want to be in, where we can just be ourselves without being discriminated or victims of hate crimes. So I want to introduce Chiharu Sai. She is a faculty member, our music department director, to share with us. Chiharu?
Hello, everyone. I'm Chiharu Sai. So happy to see you all here. Just a brief background about me. I was born and brought up in Tokyo, Japan. And when I was age 17, I told my parents I must go to the United States. I wanted to be in Oregon because I was watching this TV documentary called With Love from Oregon. And it was basically about this Japanese family who immigrated into the States and worked on a strawberry farm at the foot of Mount Hood. So when I saw those the mountain and the forest and lake, I told my parents, that's where I want to be. I don't want to be in Tokyo. So I came to Oregon when I was 17, and I just loved it so much here. And although I had to go back to Japan to finish my high school, I decided to come back as a college student, and I went to Willamette University. And at that time, well, first of all, when I was a high school exchange student, I ended up in Roseburg, Oregon, out of all the places, because my whole, this family who became my host family called LA office and said, well, I would like to have an exchange student from Japan. If you have a girl, Japanese girl who plays a piano, we'll take her. And I played the piano. I was from Japan, so that's how I came to Roseburg, Oregon. My host family in Roseburg had a upright piano in the basement, and they were just wonderful about arranging a piano teacher for me and everything. I had a blast going to Cradle Lake, exploring, the Oregon coast. They ended up taking me all over like the western states plus Montana, to show me the national park and state parks. And I love nature, so we had a great time. But when I was going to Willamette University, I was a music major, and I was all about practice, getting up early in the morning, going to school to practice the piano before all the morning classes started at 9 a.m. And, in those winter days, like if 6:30 in the morning, sometimes it was 6 a.m., it was still dark. But I used to take my mountain bike from the ground floor of our apartment, and there was an alley. And it was literally just a 5-minute bike ride, but that's what I was doing every morning, pretty much. And one morning, it was all dark. There was no one around, and all my roommates are still asleep. When I opened the door, I saw this bright spray paint on the wall in the alley. It was huge. It was this graffiti. There was a writing that said Hiroshima was necessary. It was very bright and very big. And when I saw that, I was totally, I just freaked out because I was probably 20 at that time, and I was just leading this very simple life as a college student. And suddenly I realized someone was always watching me. Someone was watching me taking this mountain bike out of that door and leaving for school. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't know whether to close the door immediately or still go to school to practice. I don't even remember what I did at that time. I was in total shock. So although my experience in the United States has been just really, really fabulous, I've met so many beautiful, wonderful, giving people. I was always supported by many wonderful people, including teachers, my private piano teachers, as well as my host family, as well as just my friends, community people. But that one time, I will never forget the kind of fear. Well, I mean, first of all, I was so young, and I don't even know who has done such, who did the graffiti, but um, it was a very how can I say, it was just a terrible act of probably some adults. I would think it was an adult person who did such thing, but to put so much fear into young people like that, it just wasn't right. Um, I remember when I talked to a counselor at school, I think there was a report that was filed with the police, but I was never notified as to like who did that graffiti. And so right now, well, because this conversation was coming up, I was talking to my partner, who's an Asian American as well, and he was born and brought up in the Bay Area um, under Japanese mother and Chinese father, and his mother came from Japan, but I think his father was probably the first generation, or you call it the second, like his father, basically his father's father came from China. And my partner actually knew a lot of people who were in internment camps, and his ex-wife's parents actually were in internment camp as well. And I was told that these people really they were just given 1 week notice to pack up their stuff. They could only, each person could carry only a luggage full of stuff. And if these people had houses, they had to sell their houses, basically, pennies on the dollar. And many people, when they were released from the internment camp, I think it was about 3 years or so, 1942 to 45, around that time. It was during the World War II, right? So, but when these Asian Americans were released from the camps, many didn't come back to California. They all went somewhere else because they lost everything in California, and probably there was some kind of stigma about them. They were not going to go back to their, neighborhood, right, to start over. And so we love nature. So we used to go to Tule Lake area. And sometimes I would go with my other, my friends also, just to do some bird watching or just explore that area. I have a house in Mount Shasta, my second house. So, we just decided to go, for a drive and go up to Tule Lake. And I was really surprised to find there was an internment camp site, and there used to be a plaque saying this was a Japanese internment camp area. And when I read up on it, I learned that some of these Japanese people who are first generation, they used to look at Mount Shasta and think of Mount Fuji, because Mount Shasta, there are a couple of peaks, depending on what how from which direction you're looking at the mountain. Sometimes it looks like there are two peaks. Sometimes if you're in McLeod, it looks like three peaks. And when you're in northern, when you're looking at Mount Shasta from Tule Lake, it looks like one peak, and it really looks like Mount Fuji in many ways. So I was sad to hear to learn about this place, and it was just so close to us, and it's really in the middle of nowhere, and there's so many Japanese Americans who were thrown into that camp. I heard from my partner that many Asian Americans are just placed in those camps. Not necessarily they were abused or beaten up or anything, but they were always they were being supervised always. So anyway, it was a very difficult, challenging time in history for Asian Americans, and I was really sad to see that this kind of like hate towards Asian surfaced earlier this year and last year, and some people would actually like try to do some nasty things to elderly, like all these older Asian American people. I think things are much harder for Asian men than Asian women. My experience in the States has been very positive in many ways. People have been so nice to me, and so many people are centered on their love. They're all about the humanity and coming together and getting connected. But unfortunately, I think experience that Asian men have in this country can be a little bit tougher. That's my experience. That's my my feeling. So thank you so much for listening. And I think I'm so happy to see so many people here, and we're walking this path to love and humanity coming together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gosh, when you started saying about that experience with the spray paint, I got chills. I'm very sorry that you had to go through that, experience that. Thank you for sharing with us. So we are going to start talking about allyship right now. And while I go through just some basics of what is allyship, if you want to put anything in the chat of what it means to you, please do so. Is this showing now? My screen, I think.
Yes.
What is allyship? Great. Okay. So allyship is being a friend, being an advocate, being supportive, being a careful listener, being respectful, being a researcher, learning, not being a savior, not stereotyping, being able to accept criticism even when it's not comfortable, being willing to work towards changing oppressive systems. That's the hard work. And most of all, being brave. So we want to go through the 5 Ds of allyship. So we'll start with document. And I believe Tom.
Yep, yeah. I did. It took me a second more to unmute myself than usual. I don't know why. As I was, thinking about this piece this week, I mean, in this day and age, probably the easiest answer, and how do we do this, is our phones. I mean, most everyone has one. Most everyone, knows how to take a picture or to do a video. So I mean, that's a piece. If you see something going on and you feel that that there's something you can do to be an ally, documenting it is is important. And again, the phone is probably our easiest tool, but it also, I guess it's important also just to be very aware of where we are at the time, what's going on. I think that, just keeping track of really, where am I when this happened? Who was around me when this happened? What time, did this happen? Because you're going to need to go back and remember those kind of things too. And just kind of take that extra time to figure out what's going on and kind of take that visual of your own. But again, like I said, that there's the ability to take pictures and videos is, either right up in someone's face or, from a safe distance is there and is accessible to all of us. And in closing though, right up there in somebody's face, the other thing about this is as being an ally and documenting, you also don't want to put yourself in danger either. I mean, we have to be very careful as we are helping. We don't want to make a situation worse, and we surely don't want to, put ourselves in a spot that is damaging and possibly not helping the situation as well. So just, I think, being aware and knowing how to use the tools you have around is kind of what I think of when I think of documenting.
Thank you. Okay, next, Ernestine is going to talk to us about delegating.
Yes, delegating. The first thing I want to say about delegating, it is not shunning your responsibility. It is just a question of knowing when to ask for help in a situation, or to recognize that there may be somebody better who can respond to the situation at hand. And of course, in the most extreme situations, to call 911 if necessary. When you're talking to someone and you're trying to be an ally, all the things that Sally listed before, it's important, but I think a couple of the things that stand out for me is somebody who wants to be the savior, who has all the answers. We don't have all the answers, and we need to recognize that and to accept that, okay, maybe this person needs to talk to somebody else, somebody who has more experience, and somebody who has a broader point of view than I do. And so you point that person in the direction that they need to go to get help, and to continue to support them as they go to get help from somebody else. So I think for us, we need to be able to say, I don't have the answer. There's somebody else who has an answer. There's somebody who has a better answer, and to point that person in the position, in the direction where they can get help. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Back to Tom with direct.
Right. Again, as I said, whatever the situation you find yourself in, and if you feel you need to be direct, that you need to confront something that's going on, again, be aware of your safety and the safety of the people you're trying to help. The thing that stuck in my mind too, that I speaking for me as a middle-aged white male, that piece of wanting to step in and fix things and help things and do things and and save the situation, bubbles up quickly, and that's not always appropriate. As I thought about this too, not every situation is necessarily dangerous. A lot of situations are much more subtle and are easy to ignore, to be aware of that. And the thing that came to my mind, which has happened to me on a number of occasions, is being in a group of either friends, acquaintances, or complete strangers, and having someone just tell an incredibly, in my opinion, inappropriate joke. And when that happens, whoever that joke is about, you have the option to kind of chuckle quietly, roll your eyes, and kind of, or you can make, you can say something. And what I found for me that works really well is just to look at the person and tell the joke and said, I don't get it. Could you explain it to me? And oftentimes that has a pretty interesting effect, because all of a sudden now that person has to stop and explain why they think that particular joke at the expense of somebody else was really funny. And that's a real subtle way, but it's a real powerful way just to ask someone to explain what they meant by that. Because they may not have even, known what they were doing was really that out of, was, for whatever reason, they may not have known that they were doing something that was inappropriate, and that helps. And if they surely know they were, then that helps too. So that's one way of doing it.
Thanks, Tom. I like that. Because what do you say? Like, could you explain that to me? That's good. I am going to talk about distracting. And if you know me, you'll know why I like this one. Because, I mean, it could be something as simple as dropping or spilling something just to get some attention shifted away. It could be going up to the person who is being bullied, harassed. And even if you don't know who they are, let's say they're a stranger, you just kind of go up to them and you act like you know them. You maybe say, hey, Susan, and just start talking to them like you know them, just to give them a show of support. And maybe say, hey, could you come over here and show me this? Something like that. But the being absurd, I heard somebody say, start singing a song loudly. And, if you do that, I promise you, people are going to turn and say, what is going on? I don't sing well. Although recently I did some karaoke with some friends and I got over it. It was like, it didn't matter. It was just fun. So just singing a song. And if you don't want to sing, another thing you could do is dance. Imagine you're in the Frozen section at the grocery store and you just start breaking out a time step. You start dancing. I thought about kind of combining distract and direct, because you don't have to use just one of these, but just tap dancing right up to the person who is being rude and saying, hey, can I teach you how to do, can I teach you to dance, or do you want to dance with me? So those are some ways that you can just kind of shake people out of that moment. And it's got some humor in it too. I think humor is a really good piece to help get people to settle down or type of thing. So I did say you have to be brave. Those are a couple brave options to do there. But I like thinking about these things right now in a safe environment and practicing them. It's like putting it into your memory bank. So when the situation arises, you're not like, oh, later, oh, I wish I would have done that. You've got those memories, you practice those things. And if you practice them, then when the situation comes up, you'll have them on the ready to share with people. So on to Jenny with delay.
So to kind of talk about all of those things, there is that hindsight 2020 situation where you think, oh, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? And that's where the delay can really come in. If you can't take action in the moment, maybe you don't feel safe. Maybe you don't feel that brave at the time, or like that's really an option. Come back and show your support for the people that you care about, or even it might even be someone that you don't know. Just show your support and let them know that you are an ally and that you care. It's always so much easier when we know that we're not alone in a situation, when we feel like we're supported and that there are people out there that care and that will actively step forward and say, I care. I wish I could have done more, but just showing that cohesion and that support for folks makes people feel welcome and seen. And that's really important in the work of being an ally. And sometimes, like we did talk about, there's a lot of times when you really don't feel like it might be a safe situation for you to do any of the other options, but you can make a difference and you can offer help and you can offer support and just be present and help as much as you can, sometimes after the fact. And that has power also.
It sure does. Okay. So I live in Grants Pass and I have a good friend, Susan Hall, who's online with us here today. She's a good example of how to be an ally. So Susan, will you please share your story with us? Oh, we got to unmute. There you go.
So I can unmute myself. Good afternoon. I get my nails done at Forever Nails and here in Grants Pass, and I have for many years. The people that run the shop are of Vietnamese ancestry. And when things first started to really spike with a lot of ugly incidents, I asked them if they had experienced any problems. They did not volunteer it. But I asked them and they said, well, yes, they had. And I said, how bad is it? Have you had to call the police? And they said, well, yes, we have. And I thought, this is a good time to exercise the white privilege that I was born with by purest luck of the draw. So I did a couple of different things. I have a lot of friends who go there also. I told my friends about this. I told people at church that go there and other friends, and said, we need to do something. We need to get the word out. And the word went out to somebody decided to hold a fundraiser, and they advertised it on Facebook. And so there was a big party day where everybody got their nails done, or bought gift certificates to support them, because they were losing business. People were getting anxious about going in there. And the other thing that I did is I went in there. The experience of harassment was generally in the late afternoon. I would go in there in the late afternoon and just sit there quietly reading on my phone and waiting in case something happened again, ready to video it. I'm 5'3½". I was not going to be involved in anything. But the nice thing about being a small, older white woman is I figured I'd be invisible there, because anybody that was going to come in and hassle them wasn't going to be able to see me. I would be effectively invisible. But I could video, and if necessary, call the police right away. And I did that for a while until things seemed to have calmed down. And so those were the things I could think of to be an ally and to be helpful to some people who are United States citizens, productive people, taxpayers, and raising their children here, and they're just plain American citizens, and they don't deserve to have happened to them what was happening.
Appreciate that, Susan. Thanks for sharing with us. Now we are going to do some breakout rooms, a little scenario practice. Bear with me while I rearrange. So you're going to be randomly grouped into smaller breakout rooms, about 4 to 5 people per room. And so we'd like you to introduce yourself. And if you prefer not to speak, that's okay. We'd still like you to introduce yourself and just tell people you want to just listen. You can silently participate that way. If you aren't able to stay with us, go ahead and sign off, because when I open up the breakout rooms, when people drop out, it makes it hard. So we'd like to have a few people there. So the scenario is going to be, you're in a grocery store, you're in line, and the person behind you is being confronted by another customer, and you hear them telling them, go back to your country, you're not welcome here. This is the United States, speak English. So we want you, again, to go into your breakout room and introduce yourself, and then use those 5 Ds to be an ally. If they're not in the chat yet, Jenny, if you could throw those in the chat, the 5 Ds, and role play. What could you say? What could you do to help a person out in this situation? So we're going to be in our breakout rooms for about 15 minutes.